How do you go about passing the ACCA P4 examination? Many people have heard that this is the most difficult paper there is on ACCA. And although there are technical things on this question that are potentially harder than any other paper that you may have to study for, there are several parts of this exam that are obviously very passable, otherwise nobody would actually pass the paper. But there are several things that we can actually do to make sure it's going to be a little bit easier for you to pass your exam on your first attempt. The first thing you need to make sure is that you know your ACCA F9 topics. This paper builds upon the knowledge that you've learned on ACCA F9 financial management. Therefore, you'll be in a very weak position if you try to do this paper without having learned and understood all the topics that you did at ACCA F9. Therefore, if you know it's been a long time since you've done your F9 paper, if you know there were certain topics that you were never that strong on when you did that paper, before you start looking at this paper, take some time to go back and make sure that you are happy with the key underlying concepts that build into this paper. If you don't do this, you'll suddenly find that some of the topics that you're going through on P4 suddenly seem incredibly difficult, and this may have a massive effect on your confidence. So to avoid that happening, spend some time, go back and look at F9, and then when you come to do P4, not only will you be a little bit happy with it when you start, you will probably get through the material much, much quicker, allowing you more and more time to practice those questions as you get closer to the examination. Secondly, do not learn everything. Now, for many students, this is a very strange concept. You've got the ACCA syllabus, you've got a massive textbook that includes all the information that's on the syllabus, but you only have so much time before the examination. You are probably not going to have time to learn absolutely everything that's in that textbook and absolutely everything that's on the syllabus. Therefore, you've got to make sure that you understand the main key topics and then be able to apply them to a question. Furthermore, your examiner has highlighted the fact that this paper is master's level and he will not always write questions that are solely based on the syllabus. He will expect you to bring in your understanding of the greater world and how it applies to this paper. So do spend some time making sure that you understand the key areas of the syllabus and how they work, but do make sure you spend time looking at the financial world, read the financial press and see what's happening out there, and then think about how it relates to this paper. And don't forget, there is always an element of common sense on this paper. Simple questions such as, what is the best thing to do in this particular situation? Put yourself in that position, whether you're a finance director or a financial manager in the question. If you were in that role, what sort of things would you think about? Considering the objectives of the business, considering where you want the company to be, thinking about the potential pitfalls. You do not need a massive textbook and a massive syllabus to tell you what's necessarily going to be the right thing to do in that situation. Think about it from your own perspective. If it was your company, if you were running it, what sort of things would you think about? What sort of things would be important to you? And off the back of that, you can then try to bring in the knowledge you've got to answer the question. The next thing to consider is do not try to get the right answer. And again, this may seem very, very strange. I've got to get the right answer. I'm in an exam. I have to get the numbers right. I have to get the wordy bits right. Don't get me wrong. We are always trying to get the best answer possible. But when you are studying for this paper, as you start going through the subject matter, don't be worried if you're not getting the same answers as the questions that you are looking at. These questions are demanding, and as you study, you will get better and better and better. But if you try to get the right answer straight away, you will spend a disproportionate amount of your time worrying about little things where you've actually gone wrong. In the exam, you only need 50% to pass. So start off by looking at the questions to see, can you get some of it right? Make sure you're happy with that, and then you can build from there. And on the day of the exam, when you've done 13, 14 weeks of studying, you can still get 50% of it wrong and you will still have passed the paper. Therefore, when you start studying, if you're already getting 50% of it wrong, you are well on your way to passing the exam. Start off by making sure you understand some topics, you can have a go at the questions, and then the more you do these questions, you'll get better and better. If you spend too much time trying to get the finer details right, you won't get round to practicing the other parts of the questions that bring in a large proportion of the marks. Next thing to consider is do all the easy parts. And you may be thinking this is ACCA P4, there are no easy parts. There are always some easy bits on every single examination question. There's some assumed knowledge from F9 that you should be competent with, so make sure you get that done. There are always some simple calculations incorporated in the harder things. Make sure you get those bits done. And make sure you're doing the kind of advice and the wordy parts of the questions that you can do without necessarily having lots and lots of technical knowledge. So you must make sure you're picking up all of the marks on the easier parts of the questions. And then you must attempt the hard parts. There is no point leaving the hard parts out. If you leave them out completely, you will score no marks for the hard parts whatsoever. You may as well have a go at them. You may be picking up some credit. And a lot of people will feel they don't want to have a go because they think they might get it wrong. But consider what we said before, you probably are going to get it wrong. There's always some fine detail that you'll get wrong on the exam, but it's okay to get it wrong because we don't need to get 100% on the day of the exam. Get all the easy bits done, have a go at the hard bits to demonstrate that you have some knowledge on those topics and pick up marks that way round. In the exam, stick to your time allocation. Each question has got allocated marks, and if you divide the full 3 hours you have by the exam by the 100 marks that you will attempt, that works out to be approximately 1.8 minutes per mark. Now, some people like to adjust this to give themselves a little bit of extra reading time or a bit of spare capacity. Whatever works for you, do that in the examination, but work out your time allocation and stick to it religiously in the exam. If you run over time, that probably means you are caught up doing a hard part of a question and you may potentially miss out easy marks later on. If you run out of time, move on, and if you happen to have some spare time at the end of the exam, you can always come back and attempt it. Have a go at every part of every question, stick to your time allocation, pick up the easy marks, and then whatever time you have left at the end, you can go back and try to get some of the harder marks. And finally, and possibly most importantly, specifically answer the question. Too many students will just see that the question is on a certain topic and then just tell the examiner everything they know about that topic. This is one of your final level papers, and that is not a skill that they're looking for at this level. They want to see, have you seen the scenario, understood the requirement, and can specifically tell the examiner what he's asked for. For example, if the question's asked for advice, give specific advice as to what you should do. If the question says calculate, identify exactly what it's asking you to calculate and make sure you do that calculation at the end. But always keep in mind, this is not a theory paper. Relate to the scenario. Any theory will change depending on the scenario it's actually relating to. The advice that you give will depend upon the scenario, the company, the position of the company, and the overall economy. So you must make sure that the advice that you are giving, the calculations that you would do, are tailored to the specific scenario that you've actually been given. And although this paper will sometimes feel technically difficult, if you can stick to these rules, if you can do all the easy bits, attempt all the hard bits, and do all the things that we've listed out here, it's going to make it much, much easier for you to pass your examination first time.